Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Tom Rogers, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Sergeant Jason McDonald. We welcome the veterans who have served, those who are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of the ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors and students on behalf of the following schools: from New South Wales, Tamworth West Public School, Central Coast Adventist School, Primary Department Arena, and from Victoria, St Mary MacKillop College, Swan Hill. If you are able, please stand and join in the singing of the National Anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières in France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved. And here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private Albert Charles Rogers. Albert Rogers was born to Joseph and Eliza Rogers in Waterbury, Kent, England in December 1894. As a young man, he served for a year in the 4th Battalion, Queen's own Royal West Kent Regiment, his local reserve unit. At the age of 19, Rogers migrated to South Australia, finding work as a farm labourer near Adelaide. With the outbreak of war, Rogers enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force in June 1915. Sailing on the transport ship Star of England in September, he arrived at the training camps in Egypt in November and joined the 10th Australian Infantry Battalion. In early April, Rogers developed bronchitis and was unable to keep up with his unit's training or marching. He was declared medically unfit and discharged from the Army, returning to Australia. A year later, in May 1917, Rogers re-enlisted. In July, he sailed on the transport ship Port Melbourne and arrived in England in September. His lungs had recovered so well that he was able to act as his unit's bugler for the duration of the voyage. He undertook training at the camps on the Salisbury Plain for 6 months before sailing for France in March 1918. In France, he joined his new unit, the 48th Australian Infantry Battalion. During April, the 48th Battalion was stationed in and around the town of Albert in the Somme sector of the Western Front. In March 1918, the Germans had launched what was to be their final assault of the war, known as the German Spring Offensive. Their objective in the Somme sector was to capture the railway centre of Amiens, but their attack was halted at the town of Villers-Bretonneux. Australian and British forces defended the town in 2 separate battles during April. In May, Rogers and the men of the 48th Battalion were stationed in the front line of Villers-Bretonneux. In the early hours of the morning of the 3rd of May, the battalion assaulted a German position at Monument Wood, east of the town. The attacking forces faced strong German resistance and failed to take their objective. During the fighting, Rogers was shot and wounded. He died of his wounds at a nearby casualty clearing station the next day, the 4th of May 1918. He was 23 years old. Albert Rogers is buried at Vignecourt British Cemetery in France, alongside more than 500 Commonwealth soldiers of the First World War. After the war, the village of Vignecourt erected a statue of a French soldier with the inscription, "Brothers in arms of the British Army, fallen on the field of honour, sleep in peace, we are watching over you." Private Albert Charles Rogers is listed on the Roll of Honour to my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. A photograph of his headstone is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Albert Charles Rogers, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
lest we forget.
We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen and students, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.